For over 3 decades, Johnny Carson ruled late-night television like a king presiding over his own glittering court. Every evening, millions of Americans tuned in to see that familiar grin, that effortless wit, and those smooth, measured tones that made him seem like everyone's best friend. Yet behind that calm, genial face, behind the polite laughter and the impeccable timing, was a man who carried grudges like precious stones. The real Johnny Carson was as disciplined in his dislikes as he was in his monologues, and the feuds he nurtured quietly shaped the landscape of American entertainment for decades. Those who knew him best said Carson's memory was long and his forgiveness nearly non-existent. Once you landed on his private blacklist, there was no path back. He'd smile that famous smile while slicing you to ribbons, one long-time Tonight Show staffer recalled. And unless you worked there, you never knew he was doing it. Beneath the surface charm lived a man who measured respect, loyalty, and authenticity as seriously as ratings. Tonight, we uncover the truth behind television's most enduring mask, exploring the 5 celebrities Johnny Carson despised the most, and why each feud mattered far beyond late-night TV. That if this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. 1. Joan Rivers, the protege who betrayed the king. Of all Johnny Carson's hatreds, none ran deeper or more heartbreakingly than the one he held for Joan Rivers. What began as one of television's most successful mentor-protege relationships ended as its most public and painful betrayal. When Carson first met Joan Rivers in the 1960s, she was a struggling comic hustling her way through smoky New York clubs. Johnny saw something in her, raw talent, sharp intelligence, and courage in her punchlines. He brought her onto The Tonight Show when few women were given such opportunities. She dazzled the audience, and Carson made her a regular guest. Soon, he named her his permanent guest host, a position that made her the most visible woman in comedy. "You're going to be a star," he told her one night after a show. And she was, but loyalty mattered to Carson more than talent ever could. In 1986, Joan accepted an offer from the brand new Fox network to host her own late-night show, a direct competitor to The Tonight Show. What shattered their relationship wasn't competition. It was how she handled it. She never called Johnny personally. He learned the news from Fox executives before hearing a word from her. He considered that the greatest betrayal of his professional life, recalled Fred de Cordova, Carson's longtime producer. He said, "She didn't just betray me, she betrayed the code." From that day forward, Joan Rivers was banned from The Tonight Show. Carson ordered that she never appear again, not as a guest, not even mentioned. And he kept that clause in his contract for the rest of his life. When Fox canceled her show less than a year later and her husband, Edgar Rosenberg, tragically took his own life, many expected Carson, who had shown quiet generosity to countless people, to reach out. He never did. "She made her choice," he told a close friend. "I made mine." Even decades later, when Fallon finally lifted the ban in 2014, both Carson and Rivers were long gone. The wound had never healed. Joan once said in her final years, "I truly thought he'd forgive me someday." He never did. To Johnny, betrayal was final. The feud became a tragic reminder that, even in comedy, loyalty was no laughing matter. 2. Wayne Newton, the feud that turned dangerous. Most of Johnny Carson's feuds stayed hidden behind his smile. The one with Wayne Newton nearly turned violent. It began innocently enough, Carson cracking jokes about Newton's flamboyant image during his nightly monologues. They were routine late-night gags, the kind Carson delivered about countless stars. But Wayne Newton wasn't like other targets. Known for his deep ties to Las Vegas and a fiery temper, Newton decided to confront the king of late night directly. One afternoon in the early 1980s, Newton stormed into NBC's Burbank studios. He didn't have an appointment, recalled a Tonight Show crew member. He just showed up. Face-to-face with Carson, Newton demanded that the jokes stop, claiming they were hurting his Vegas career. Carson, always cool, replied, "Comedy doesn't take requests." From there, things spiraled fast. Rumors spread that Newton, a known firearms enthusiast with friends in casino security, had hinted that accidents happen in the desert. Carson, unimpressed, doubled down. The jokes became sharper, now mocking Newton's alleged mob connections and financial troubles. NBC executives begged Johnny to ease off. He refused. Let him try something, he said. I've got more viewers than he's got friends. Newton escalated publicly, vowing in a televised interview to teach Johnny a lesson if the jokes continued. Carson, breaking his usual rule of silence about feuds, fired back the next night. I don't know why Wayne is so mad. I like his act, especially the parts where he bends over and pulls doves out of his pants. For once, the feud wasn't subtle. It was open warfare, carried out with punchlines instead of fists. Eventually, Newton went quiet, realizing the jokes were doing more damage to him than Carson ever could. Johnny, satisfied that he'd proven his point, let it fade. Still, that clash revealed the steel beneath Carson's charm. He was not a man to be intimidated. For Johnny, humor wasn't just entertainment, it was power. And nobody told the king what he could or couldn't say. 3. Fred Silverman, the executive Carson, quietly destroyed. If Joan Rivers represented betrayal and Wayne Newton represented threat, then Fred Silverman embodied something Carson hated even more: interference. When Silverman became NBC's president in 1978, he was hailed as a genius programmer, the man who could turn around the struggling network. But he made one fatal mistake. He tried to tell Johnny Carson how to run The Tonight Show. Silverman wanted faster interviews, shorter jokes, tighter pacing. He sent memos about what guests to feature and what tone to take. For Carson, who had built his empire on instinct and experience, it was an insult. Who the hell is this guy telling me how to do my show? He snapped in private. But Johnny never confronted directly. He played a longer, quieter game. Soon, his monologues started including sly jabs about NBC's poor ratings. NBC just announced its fall lineup. They're very excited about it, which is the same thing they said about the Edsel. Industry insiders knew exactly who the target was. Carson's writers later admitted these jokes were strategic, psychological warfare disguised as comedy. Behind the scenes, Carson made calls to RCA, NBC's parent company, subtly warning that he might explore other opportunities if Silverman stayed in charge. No threats, no ultimatums, just implications. Within 2 years, the message landed. Silverman's reputation crumbled, and by 1981, he resigned under pressure. When reporters later asked Carson about Silverman, he smiled and said, "Fred who? I'm terrible with names." That single line was vintage Johnny, ice-cold humor hiding total victory. In the world of late-night politics, he didn't need to shout or fight. He simply let his influence do the work. By the time Silverman left NBC, everyone understood a rule that would last for decades. No one crosses Johnny Carson and keeps their job. 4. Frank Sinatra, a clash between legends. Johnny Carson and Frank Sinatra were both icons, two of the most powerful men in American entertainment. But that's exactly why they couldn't stand each other. Their first meeting in 1962 set the tone. Sinatra, used to controlling every detail of his public image, arrived at The Tonight Show with a list of pre-approved questions. Carson, committed to spontaneity, refused to follow it. "I don't work that way," he told him. Sinatra was stunned. Nobody told him no. The interview went forward but was ice cold. Sinatra swore he'd never return, and for nearly a decade, he didn't. Their feud wasn't about personality, it was about philosophy. Sinatra represented old Hollywood, glamorous, guarded, hierarchical. Carson represented the new order, relaxed, democratic, and unpredictable. Sinatra expected reverence. Carson believed in equality. To Johnny, all guests were equal under the bright lights of a stage. That attitude changed the DNA of American television. In 1976, Sinatra finally agreed to return, but only under his own conditions. He approved the guest list and demanded no competing singers. Carson, aware of the ratings gold such an appearance promised, agreed, but only once. The interview was polite, even humorous at moments, yet the tension was unmistakable. Two empires sharing one couch. They never became friends. Sinatra only returned once more for Carson's farewell week in 1992, and even then the exchange felt rehearsed, distant, symbolic. Their silent feud shaped how celebrities and talk show hosts interact today. Carson's refusal to bow to Sinatra's power helped democratize entertainment, ensuring that no guest, no matter how legendary, would ever again dictate the terms of television conversation. It was a battle between eras, the old star system versus the new authenticity. And though Sinatra's records may still play, Carson's philosophy won. 5. Bob Hope, the comedy legend he secretly despised. Perhaps the most surprising name on Johnny Carson's secret hate list was Bob Hope, the beloved comedian America adored for decades. On camera, Carson was polite, respectful, even laughing at Hope's jokes. Off camera, he could barely stand him. The problem wasn't jealousy or competition. It was authenticity. To Carson, comedy was a living conversation, not a memorized act. Hope represented the opposite. He came armed with cue cards and pre-written jokes, performing the same bits no matter what Carson asked. He wasn't talking to Johnny, a staffer remembered. He was reading at him. In the early years, Carson tolerated it out of respect. By the 1980s, he dreaded it. After Hope's appearances, he'd retreat to his office and vent to his writers. That's not an interview, it's a recital. Yet Hope was untouchable. NBC worshipped him, America loved him. So Carson endured, crafting subtle strategies to minimize his discomfort. He booked Hope early in the show, limited his airtime, and shifted immediately to livelier guests afterward. Those who watched closely noticed the difference. Carson's smile remained, but his eyes drifted. His body leaned away. The chemistry was gone. He once joked privately, "If Hope brings one more card, I'm going to start reading them for him." When the network suggested having Hope appear on Carson's final episode in 1992, Johnny refused. "It's my last show," he said. "I want to talk to people I actually enjoy talking to."